And I'm really thankful to our host here for waking you up into this session. Not that the previous one was not thought invigorating enough. It was fantastic, and I was at the edge of my seat for all the reasons that they highlighted. But here now we're talking about a very different theme, an enabler. We moved, I think, across different topics for those of you who have been here since the morning. This panel here will be addressing technology as an enabler and how they are using it. I think we'll all agree that in the past decade, digital technologies have created a transformative impact, whether it was digital literacy with COVID, whether it was access to devices. I mean, we are hearing of a lot of different innovations, but I want to hand it to the panel. A quick introduction on why I'm here. I represent AVPN, which is a network of social investors. So funders who are making decisions on how to deploy their capital to bridge this huge impact gap. So I would definitely be concerned in hearing the great ideas. And I come from a 20-year background being in the technology industry. So this crossover conversation is really going to be very insightful for me personally. So without too much on introductions, if I could request our panelists, and you know that we're on that ticker, and I have been prompted to keep this snappy and tight, so whatever the responses are, as much as can be a takeaway for our audiences, I'll request that of our panel. And my first question, considering we're a majority, maybe we'll give it to Ratnesh today. Maybe a quick introduction on what you do, but in that context of how has technology enabled your work, Ratnesh, and in terms of the innovations that you are seeing, and we can then go to the CSR in the panel. But Ratnesh represents the UN Global Compact, as you know.
Yes, thank you so much. So I work for this agency called UN Global Compact, and it is present in almost 62 countries with the headquarters in New York, and it's a special initiative of the Secretary General, the then Kofi Annan. At the turn of the century, when MDGs were being launched, he had foreseen that without private sector contribution, none of the goals will be realizable. And how prophetic it is now, everything is coming to a convergence, the whole SDG framework, the whole ESG discussion, everything, what companies do inside the factory gate, what they do outside, it's all coalescing into a virtuous cycle. And I am so lucky to be part of that change process. Now, coming to technology, I mean, I joined the workforce in 1991, and 1984, around that time, computers were being introduced, mobile phones were a long way off, and how gradually we have seen in front of our own eyes the things which they used to take a long time, the whole reconciliation, the whole data utilization, how trustworthy it was, there was no way of verifying, how gradually, decade by decade, we have now reached a stage where some companies, corporates, as well as the civil society, are fully there with all the capacitated staff, all the latest technology, and they are able to close their accounts in a snap of a finger. Imagine, compare it to when I started, at least, so 33, 34 years ago. I mean, it was such a painful thing, all the paper-based ledgers, the accounts, the reconciliation. So I think technology has helped us. Secondly, what technology has done, and also enabled by many other factors like the mobile phone, the Aadhaar card, and the Jan Dhan accounts, I think this trinity also has helped us to directly reach out to the clients at the lower end of the economic spiral, and we are able to actually see how the money trail, how it is going, how it is being spent, and the whole UPI revolution. So I think in any area you look, there have been very positive developments. However, the note of caution is that if your programs are not designed well, then no amount of technology is going to help you. So that equity consideration which the previous panelist was talking about, so that the client has to be at the center of all this, only then technology as an enabler can help us reach. But if there are issues in the design itself and the equity considerations are not taken care of, then I'm afraid technology is going to widen the chasm rather than reduce it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ratnesh. I think, across the world when we go, the Aadhaar card implementation is a benchmark for this. I think Neeraj was mentioning on the previous panel, the kind of scale we have the largest number of everything. So, and the most complexity in our country. So whether it's UPI or whether it's Aadhaar, these are exemplary large-scale implementations across the country, which have really enabled us to achieve a lot. But from your lens, Kanika, maybe if we can go to you as a foundation, where, again, to take a segue from the previous session, we talked about scale, we talked about sustainability and speed, which are really the three S's that technology clearly provides. How has your foundation, the Shikhar Dhawan Foundation, used it? And specifically in the thematics that you focus on, would be lovely for the audience to hear.
Hi. So particularly when we talk about technology, right, it's a very two-way street. When you look at this particular aspect, it is not only inclusive in terms of how you utilize it for community upliftment, it is also how you utilize it for the upliftment of the NGO sector, right? The one aspect is where we utilize it, and at Shikhar Dhawan Foundation, we are a 3-year-old organization. But in a short span of 3 years, we have created a lot of massive impact. And we use a lot of tech in terms of community upliftment. We have, across just about last 2 years, used a lot of EdTech, smart devices, interactive flat panels, installed K-12 softwares, that kind of tech, and uplifted for about like a lakh and a half plus students. And these are factors in which we continue to monitor. So if we look at the particular aspect of how it benefits our community, we are largely bridging in the gap. We have brought these NGO-based and government schools up to the level and at par with private institutions. The level of education has changed. The kind of applications we are giving have changed. And if we look at the aspect of a donor partner, right, somebody who's funding this project or somebody who wants to be a part of this particular activation and wants to understand how is the tech being used, we have a lot of factors that we get, and we get behavioral assessment, we have data impact recording, we have a lot of digital measures to note the minor changes in the level of education and the student structure within these institutions, which we go back and report, and that gives us a complete clear analysis of how tech has come into this aspect. So we overall have been able to utilize this to the best of both sides.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kanika. I think from Shikhar Dhawan Foundation, we're now moving to a more corporate DLF Foundation. But I believe a lot of your work is rooted, just like Kanika mentioned, and Sir mentioned, on client-centric design or community-centric design. How are you reaching your community? How has technology helped you with that?
Sure. Multiple ways, I would say. Actually, so as far as I'm concerned, I look at the comms, the advocacy, and the program design piece, as well as partnerships.
I think, yeah. It's okay. Maybe just close it.
Is it better? So, from a pure program design piece, in the last 20 plus years of where I've been working, and more than half of it has been in the CSR space, first with Tech Mahindra Foundation and now with DLF Foundation. I've leveraged technology in the form of creating mobile applications for mobilization of the community members, gave digital literacy sessions, tech enablement for program reporting, so that outcomes impact can be clearly captured, tracked, reported, especially in case of partnerships, because I kind of lead the partnerships thing. So a lot of tech enablement lends transparency from a pure partnership perspective, and other CSR programs, for instance, tech enablement programs, whether it is a volunteering program which has the way to connect volunteers, community members, so on and so forth, so that they can give back to the society. And some interesting initiatives also, like something like a Shanti Sthan crematorium, wherein we're using technology to ensure that it's a tech-enabled, energy-efficient civic amenity coming to. So in my right ways. But yes, I again come back to the fact that, It's a tool, it's an enabler function that is somewhere guiding and now in this century weaved in into the program design part of most of the CSR efforts. It has the potential to actually amplify and lend transparency into the system. And of course, last mile connect to the end beneficiary.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's like you are feeding me with prompts. The panel is going just the way I wanted to. Because when we talk about transparency, integrity of data, I think GuideStar holds the GuideStar for us. So, and also because it's a technology session, we said the minimum we should do is use technology this way. So we've dialed in Pushpa for our audience. So Pushpa, I think if you can introduce your role in creating this transparency, in creating more visibility to the funders who are making these decisions, and also how you yourself are using technology for your own platform to be accessible. I think it will really help the audience. Thanks.
Thank you, Lavanya. I hope I'm audible.
Go ahead, Pushpa, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I founded GuideStar in India about 15 years ago because as someone who is working at GIVE, which was a technology platform to allow individuals to donate to causes of their choice, we found a major absence of information about nonprofits. And so in 2009, I set up this organization inspired
Sorry,
by GuideStar
Pushpa,
in
one
the
second.
US.
Can you all hear Pushpa
Yeah.
clearly? Yeah. Can we raise the volume, please? Yeah, go ahead, Pushpa.
Okay. So I was just saying that I found myself absence of information about nonprofits and credible nonprofits to recommend to donors or to make them available on a platform. I started my career in the nonprofit space. I'm also a crossover from financial services to the social sector. So there was this big void in information to help India's first retail online giving platform, Give India, where we were showcasing nonprofits, giving assurance to donors to contribute. And then, of course, it was also catering and today to a large CSR audience as well. So absence of basic information on who's doing what. And then the second level is, where are the credible nonprofits? And so that's something that really piqued my interest and became the mission of my life. And in 2009, I started GuideStar in India, inspired by GuideStar in the US, where they literally got all of the information about charities from the IRS. So 1.8 million charities that report their tax returns, GuideStar was digitizing. But in India, we really started ground up, and today we have information on our platform, guidestarindia.org, about 12,000 NPOs, and still trying to address the lack of information and lack of trust in nonprofits. And I was looking at various CSR reports before coming for this panel today, and anywhere between 50 to 72% of companies that need to do CSR prefer to implement through a nonprofit, which is great. At the same time, when I was hearing about the Shikhar Dhawan Foundation and DLF, the kind of technology that they're using for impact reporting, the same studies, the India CSR Outlook by CSR Box says that about 59% of organizations have insufficient reporting capability. They don't have the infrastructure or the systematic way of tracking impact and reporting, etc. So that's on the reporting side. But I also understand that a lot of CSR partners as well as traditional institutional donors have a lot of discomfort in partnering with nonprofits because they're not sure about their credibility to begin with. And partly that's also because unless, unlike in the States, you have the Form 990s, which charities file with IRS, which kind of is very comprehensive and is a public document. In India, the tax returns of nonprofits are private. And it's only recently that audit reports of NGOs called Form 10B or 10BB and the ITR 7, the charity tax returns, have become extremely comprehensive. Not many people are still aware, but they kind of give you a very deep level of comfort about the nonprofit. So government has started gathering information. Of course, there is also concern in charities that they're getting over-regulated. But at the same time, this information is still not public, it's not known to people, it's not easily accessible, and it's still not very reliable because you'll be surprised to know that even the statutory auditors of non-profits don't always get it right while embracing and reporting into these new formats. So what typically GuideStar does is we work with the charities, encourage non-profits to become voluntarily more transparent, put out a lot of information including their tax returns, their governance information, their impact details. So these 12,000 organizations on our portal in varying levels they report. There are two issues. One is the confidence in being public with information, and two is the capacity to report. It takes a lot for them to have all that information collected, so which is what the CSR report also corroborated, saying that 59% actually struggle to report information. So I would kind of stop there, saying that in the non-profit sector, there are ecosystem building organizations like ours that are looking at various aspects. GuideStar India focuses primarily on the organizational information that needs to be reported out, so that when donors, be it CSR or others, when you're looking to work with implementing partners, you actually have a lot of information to be able to first decide on your areas of priority, where are the gaps, where you can really leverage. So, technology is being used within the sector to organize information so that CSR and other donors can actually zero in or zoom into areas that require their attention thematically for you to actually focus on, benchmarking impact information as well as shortlisting potential non-profit partners. And without burdening the NGOs, there's also a lot of information already available. So today what we find is non-profits complain that each and every company that comes to them for CSR, they need to kind of provide all of that information repeatedly in slightly varying formats. So we're also trying to kind of
Pushpa,
standardize reporting. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, I just wanted to use that cue, didn't mean to interrupt as much as use that cue. We have two ladies here who are taking that role, playing that role of funders. And I'm sure all that Pushpa mentioned resonates with you in terms of how you want that information, how it's given. And this is not so much on the information, but more on ease of doing business, which is what technology is about. Like you both mentioned, it's the enabler. How have you enabled your organization to be more accessible? How do you enable the partners that you work with, and how are you using technology for these collaborations? And it could be with the NGOs, or it could even be with partner organizations that you're working with, or even other donor partners if you're collaborating. So on the theme of collaboration and ease of doing business, if both of you could respond, please, that would be great.
Sure. On the theme of particularly partnership. So the first thing is that, technology helps us with communication platforms, project management softwares, and which all help in live tracking, like she mentioned. At the NGO level, the issue is more of tracking. So all these technology helps us in working on these tools so that there is live tracking, and especially in case of partners, which could be an NGO partner, it could be a corporate partnership. So all partnerships, all partners involved can actually see what is happening on ground. Depending upon the nature of the program, yes, that dashboard or that technology tool has to be created. So there is this bit of specification which is required. Post-COVID, I think things have changed. When it comes to large organizations and big CSRs, they are very much organized on this aspect, but not just them. Post-COVID, thanks to the fact that we've also enabled digital literacy training for our NGO partners, for our community members, for even ASHA and Anganwadi workers across organizations, they do understand. And Pushpa rightly mentioned that, it's a government mandate also today for all of us. So yes, I wouldn't say that it's a struggle now. We are much better than probably what we were 5 years back, or let's say the pre-COVID era. But of course, yes, goes without saying that, there's always miles to cover. But yes, I do feel that, bringing everybody at par with technology is an area which still needs work on. Not purely between corporates and funding organizations, but when we talk of community members, especially communities or organizations which are working with communities in peri-urban and rural areas. That's where, because there's a huge digital divide, so to say, which exists. So that's, yes, a challenge, but how most CSRs, I think, have been trying to focus on digital literacy trainings for most of their channel partners to kind of, take care of this in the last few years.
Well, I just want to start by saying I love impact reporting. I love it. I love it at both the ends. I love being the receiver of it from the community or the NGOs that we support. And as a beneficiary or as a partner to my corporates, I love doing that bit. Simply for one reason, it is a right. It is a simple, clear right. I maintain that system, and not only in this organization, every other that I have worked with, and I've spent 14 years now. This is my 14th year in the area of philanthropy and CSR. I think it is a complete right to maintain the transparency. If the beneficiary is receiving 10 rupees, if my donor is of 10 rupees or 10 crores, it's a complete clear right to give. Tech has helped me a lot in that same format, if I would say. If it comes to my beneficiary communities, my other partnered NGOs, there is a system in place. They exactly have same parameters. They exactly have a same reporting mechanism. My teams track it. We exactly know what we are supposed to receive and what we are supposed to provide ahead. Right? It also, we work a lot on making these setups self-sustainable. So if I have my system and if I just keep it isolated to me, it will just remain to the Shikhar Dhawan Foundation and our protocol. Tech allows us, as you said, in collaboration with these supported NGOs, we teach them these setups, right? Because there's going to be somebody else like me there tomorrow who is going to like the system of a proper reporting mechanism, the system of proper complete transparency. So when we provide these tools, we actually give them access to a larger platform for their own growth, only not the one which is dependent on us and our resources, but the one which they can accomplish themselves. And if I bring it on to the format of being a receiver of a CSR or a fund or a grant for that fact, we love to have a mechanism in place. It keeps it very crisp, very fresh. Our donors come back to us for a certain reason, and the biggest one apart from our work is this, because there is nothing we have to hide. There is nothing we hide, and we keep it so transparent that they exactly know where every single penny of their fund went. So yeah, tech is my go for everything, yeah.
Wonderful. It's nice to have a unified way, I guess. I think one of the points Pushpa and I were chatting about earlier as well is about how there are different systems to adapt to. So for the partners that you engage with, to work with Shikhar Dhawan, they might have to learn a few tools to learn, to work with DLF. It might be a different set of reporting. I think to have a unified kind of understanding of those systems, reporting is needed, everybody agrees, right? But to have common sets of tools, a common platform is probably something that is desirable. But maybe Ratnesh, if you can throw light on what would you, because you have a more neutral standpoint, on what would be your ask of CSRs if we were to leverage technology to bridge this gap towards the SDGs faster?
Thank you. Actually, since 2000, we have this system of reporting. So anyone who wants to be a member of the UN Global Compact, I'm just using it as an illustration. So anyone who wants to be a member of the Global Compact has one to apply and all that. But then every year, year on year, they have to report on 10 universal principles that UN Global Compact espouses, and companies, non-profits, academic institutions, all members basically agree. And these are basically the same SDG framework or ESG. It's about environment, human rights, labor rights, and anti-corruption. So what we have is a 20 plus years of database of tracking of our member companies, member civil societies, but it's at a very basic level, but everyone owns it up, and once they have given, it's part of a public arena where anyone can go up and say Shikhar Dhawan is my member. I mean, I hope they will become after this. So if you are my member, so the past 20 years, whatever you've done is part of a public document available on any format, Excel, CSV. So you can just slice and dice the data as a public, whatever you choose to go public with. And as BRSR is coming for the top 100 companies, and the Global Reporting Initiative, CDP. So there's a lot of formats, as you rightly pointed out. And as a person, I would definitely love to have a Unicode kind of a reporting. But unfortunately, that is not going to come anytime soon, because every agency has its own vision and what they want to be essential, and then the other non-essential. So that thing, I mean, there is a huge area for harmonization, yes. And there is agreement. I mean, any session you go for any of these reporting meetings that I am part of, everywhere it is reiterated. But unfortunately, we tend to go back to our comfort zones, which we have to fight. And I offer my COP, I mean Communication on Progress, as a thing which has helped us for the past 20 years. So I would love to enrich it, but there has to be consensus that yes, this is the way to go. It contains all the figures of clients reached, villages, geography, everything. So I would urge everyone to have a look at it, and we can make modifications, because Montek Singh Ahluwalia, when he was in the Planning Commission, he had come to release one of our human development reports some 10 years ago. So he had more than 10. So he said that if you change the metric, then the comparability is lost. So that he was talking about a time series. But here in a same time zone also, if everyone has a different framework, different sets of fields, then the whole comparability gets lost. So I think we, all of us, have to sit together and reach that place. And whatever the obstacles we have to overcome, we have to discuss. But for that, we need a much wider kind of a discussion and agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we don't have everyone in the room here who can solve the problem, but I think there is a clear takeaway that the ease of doing business in the sector, because of the disparate reporting and how technology can play a role in doing this, I think is a clear opportunity area. And anyone in the not-for-profit space, in grassroots, I'm sure your rating of ease of doing business will be, I'm going to presumptuously say, below 5. How many for yes for below 5? On ease of doing business, reporting, and how technology can be an enabler would be, I think, a high stake item, which I believe the government needs to play a role. The social stock exchange, I think, has begun to play a role. There will be a lot. But we're probably veering away, and we have 6.5 minutes, and I want to talk about some big bets which technology can take. If I were to ask the panel on what would be that big bet that you would take in your area of work, and I know this is kind of a googly, we haven't discussed this probably, but even if it's just aspirational for your foundation in your area of work, what would be that big level shifter that technology can do for you? Maybe I'll start with you for your experience. Ratnesh.
Sure. I mean, we have, and as ma'am was speaking, and ultimately the voice started breaking down at one point. So that kind of last mile connectivity, that I would like to invest in the next 4 or 5 years, that the actual person in, say, Bastar, Abujmar is also equally able to communicate, voice his concerns, raise his issues. That last mile connectivity is what I think we have to invest in. Government of India has done their bit. We also are required to contribute and support, because it's a huge project. I mean, every panchayat is supposed to be connected by this broadband. What is the status? What is the utilization? What is the digital literacy component that is required? I think we should focus on that, because an empowered citizenry is, at the end of the day, that is the source of all revolution, all change, all transformation. Because however nicely designed programs, however inclusive our claims are, ultimately if the people at the last mile are not able to exercise their rights, it is all incomplete.
So equity, access, last mile connectivity.
Through technology.
Through technology.
And enabling of both the hardware side as well as the training and capacity.
Okay, wonderful. Kanika?
Well, likewise, I think bringing tech to every door, every home, whatever corner of the country it is, most important. Second, like Sir said, bringing digital literacy, because just only providing a hardware for it or just providing an infrastructure for it and saying it's done, it's not done. Going to the grassroots level and start making that change, spending time with that community, engaging them, getting them to understand, and then still waiting on it to see that the impact we required is created. That is where our tech would be successful.
So from access to awareness and literacy, so there's added enablement.
And that's where even I am. And in fact, I covered it previously also when I spoke of digital literacy. And I'll give an example here. One of our programs is a Suvidha Kendra where beneficiaries can actually access government welfare schemes, which are applicable for them, but they are not aware of them and they don't know how to do, right? So it happens through smart digital cards called Yojana cards, right? Which have a lifetime availability, validity for them, and they can actually access. Now here, the biggest challenge is actually literacy, making them understand on how to use it. So digital literacy forms the basis of it. And like I said, going back to the COVID era, there was a time where we were, as most CSRs, we were investing in, reducing the digital divide in terms of digital equipment, fast internet connectivity. That's another challenge which I feel still exists. To actually make it more sustainable, we have to make it more equitable, right? And these two are the cornerstones. But I go back to what Sir said. From a pure tech enablement and reporting standards, I think we do need government and BRSR and so many agencies to come at a unified measure, because these metrics and everything keeps changing, right? So like on one, it's the last mile connectivity to enable the end beneficiary to actually benefit from the various programs which exist, and on the other end of the metric to connect with the government, the consulting firms, the various players, so that we are all on the same field.
Okay, thank you. And I think that connects with what Pushpa has to say, I'm sure. What would be your big bet, from GuideStar?
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you're asking this question, Lavanya, and I'm quite hopeful that people in the room and on this panel can actually make a great beginning. I, for one, think that we can use interoperability as to make technologies interoperable, so that our systems connect and there's less duplication of efforts and leakages. And we don't have to just look at government or others or everyone to agree because of technology. When I started GuideStar, I used to think we really need to have everyone around the table agree on the same forms and same technology, etc. But now I'm a believer that technology allows a lot of crosswalk. By that, what I mean is once we are committed to make our systems talk, we can use some of the key identifiers that government provides. Like, Aadhaar has been useful to interlink so many things, and recently Government of India said PAN could be, like PAN 2.0, they've been talking about another indicator that can make things interoperable. As far as non-profits are concerned, for the last almost 2 decades, I've been championing with the government to use PAN of non-profits as a unique identifier across databases. Just to put things in perspective, the income tax exempt list has 3.5 lakh or 350,000 charities. The FCRA site has about 16,000 charities. The Niti Aayog Darpan has 250,000 charities. And all of these in isolation as siloed information, they don't help a grant maker or a CSR manager take a view of an organization. But if these three could be pulled together, you have in organizations, that can receive foreign funding, maybe not that relevant completely to CSR, but who are the tax exempt charities. You can cross-verify governance information on the Darpan portal. This is just to give an example. But for people in the sector, taking leave out of what Ratnesh ji had said, the UN has also put out a lot of standard taxonomies. So interoperability, and for technology to make that work, we also need to use certain standards and certain taxonomies that are required to make our databases speak. And
Yeah.
the international
Pushpa,
classification of non-profit organizations
So-
are being used by many people.
Sorry,
Yeah, sorry.
thank you so much, Pushpa. There's a big red screen here, which you probably are saved from, which is saying time's
Okay.
up. So I'd need to call that out to you, but I'm going to take away the interoperability keyword from what you said, which is really key, because then you don't have to agree on everything as long as systems talk. It's like saying all of us should have a uniform dress code or all of us should speak the same language. We don't. We just need to have something that connects us, that we understand each other's language. So while in human relationships that's important, I guess technology can play that role in our lives as well. And I think that is a quite optimistic way to end this panel, and thank you so much. But I don't know if our host is going to intimidate us and throw us out, or we have two questions, but I'll let her ask.
The essence of being human lies in social connect. And when such a prominent panel is here with us on the stage, we wouldn't want it to go to waste. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the paucity of time, we have time to take one question. And please make sure that it's a question and not an opinion that you're stating. Thank you.
Jai Hind all. I just, very nice discussion, but I just wanted to understand on behalf of all the NGOs that most of the NGOs who are working at grassroots level, there is always a chicken and egg story when it comes to having a top of the breed, people who are giving a tech report as you want, because none of the grant makers, they want to invest or give a grant to scale the manpower, and it's just corporate NGOs who have that cadre. So is it like good to have and must to have, number one. Number two is, where do we draw the line? Because maybe you want state-of-the-art feedback, but at the grassroots level, the NGO is having difficulty because they are working at a grassroots level, they don't have MBAs or those kind of people who are making reports, right? This is number one. Number two, the gentleman who is from UN, sir, UN has got, India represents the highest number
sir,
of...
now, is this a question?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So-
Sounds to me like you're just stating facts for now. Maybe if there is a particular question related to the conversation that we just had on the stage, maybe you can put that up.
Yeah, so the kind of, the UN is leading communication kind of where most of the NGOs could copy, right? As you said, you are also having some standards, and many of the grant makers are making that kind of a standards. Can it be simplified for most of the NGOs so that they can at least come to a bare minimum level, as I said, must to have and good to have, so that at least those who are working at a grassroots level are able to give proposal and it is accepted as compared to the corporate NGOs. Yep, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, UN is basically a collection of all of us together. So whatever UN does, it will be in consultation, and we provide a convening role, but we don't have a mandate to guide that what corporate should do and what nation should do. So basically the UN General Assembly gives me the authority to engage with the private sector, but that is a limited authority. Similarly, there are various agencies and bodies of UN which perform different functions, but definitely we all talk to each other and work towards that kind of a thing. But technology is overcoming all these issues, as we just agreed. So there we will definitely, find sooner rather than later solutions to these kind of divergent requirements from the NGOs. And on the grassroots question, you said winds of change are blowing, and definitely the remotest NGOs also have a lot of urge to learn these new techniques, adopt this, and the 59% which ma'am mentioned of lack of infrastructure and all is changing slowly, because there are a lot of untied aid being provided to these institutions for capacity building and tech enablement. So I'm confident that things will definitely change for the good in the years to come. But definitely I'll keep your suggestion whenever I meet next my counterparts in other UN agencies, and look for a simplification of processes and a kind of enablement of grassroots NGOs, which I agree with you, requires a lot of hand-holding and support. Merely training manuals and infrastructure implements won't do. A lot of support is required, and across the organization. So not only the CEO of a NGO, but also the grassroots level mobilizers and a whole range of people are involved who need to be worked with.
Now it's the, I'll just take a few seconds. If you are discussing about a grassroots level NGO or a smaller NGO trying to build up, your work should speak. Whether it is a big corporate NGO, whether it's a celebrity NGO, whether it's a grassroots level NGO, tech is a supportive system. It is not the mandate. It is your work that will do the job. It is your work that will push it through. Tech is good to have, it's not a must have. And like I was telling ma'am earlier when we were discussing about collaborations and tech, that's what we do. What systems we form in our place, we supplement our NGOs with those. So that tomorrow when you are not associated with us also, you have something as a baseline system. It may not be as developed as the bigger organizations, but you have a baseline system which is good enough for you to create your proposals and your reports on, that the donor will happily, very happily accept. So all in all, the work should be the primary prima facie of it, and the work should speak for itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was a very heartening and optimistic note where we must end, but happy to have offer the panelists to you post our conversation for more questions. So thank you very much.
It's just the last point. So our partner NGOs are an integral part of any development journey. Tech, like she said, is a plus. But trust me, these days, all good organizations are more than willing to invest in regular training of NGO partners, which is hand-holding all through the journey, be it with tech, without tech, and not just the CEOs, like Sir said. Every last person who's actually implementing on the field, on the ground, right? I hope we answered collectively all of us.
Collectively all of us, yeah.
I know, she's being kind. Pushpa, if you have anything to add, a quick 20-second response. I don't know if you heard the question.
I heard the question and I heard all the fabulous responses. I would say that, for the non-profits, nobody is stopping you from asking as part of your project budget, cost for, tracking your results and using basic technology. Like from Shikhar Dhawan Foundation, ma'am said, the work is important, and while you're doing the work, what are the indicators you're going to track and how are you going to track it manually or otherwise is very critical. But as part of doing this in your project budget estimations, always build in as program the cost that is required for tracking, reporting, and even learning back from that. And no donor, I would agree, would say that they shall not pay for it. It's important how you build it as integral to the program and not as something that is desirable or an overhead. I think every donor would like to learn the impact of what they are contributing towards, and people also like to see how the organization is learning from results. So it's just a change in perspective. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pushpa. And I think the leniency might have ended, but also as a voice of the social investor network, right? I have not, in my experience, ever seen an organization being rejected because they don't have technology or they're not equipped enough. It's always the idea and their implementation and the impact that has been created. And technology has been something that has been a support from the investor to make that idea scale, to make that idea sustainable, and for that idea to have impact faster. And I'm ending where we started on the speed, sustainability and scale that Neeraj kindly gifted us into this panel as well. So, but if your experience is different, we could have offline chats. All right, thank you very much, everyone.